So welcome to Amazing Food and Drink. I am absolutely delighted to have Lorraine Heskin, who is CEO of the Gourmet Food Parlour, whose offices and restaurants are in Dublin and in Salthill in Galway. Welcome to the show, Lorraine.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so delighted and we can't wait to hear about your story. So Lorraine, just start us off and tell us a bit about yourself and your background, please.
Okay, so my name is Lorraine Heskin. I hail from a small fishing village called Barna in County Galway. Went to college and University of Limerick and then finished with the postgrad in business where IBM offered me a job afterwards and up to the big smoke I went. So it was a great grounding for me because IBM, you were like a small fish in a big pond, which is really good for your very first job because I think you just learn so much. You're like a sponge. You can learn so much from all the other departments. And I spent a while working there in various different departments. And then I had never taken the travel bug when I was in college. I always worked my summers to pay for my following semesters. So I decided to make a move to New York, and off I went to the States for 4 years. So I moved over in 2001. And that's where I left the whole technology business and I found the whole food business over there. And I got a job with one of the biggest Irish and English food imports on the east coast of the States called Irish Food Distributors. And I worked with them for 2 or 3 years and it was an amazing experience. And I always talk about America a lot because I think it gave me so many ideas and philosophies around having a food business myself. So I was working in as a consultant for the manufacturers over there, and we used to wine and dine clients quite a lot. So the whole concept of eating out in America was always so exciting, and it was just such a lovely atmosphere there. And I don't know, there was something very wow factor about it, and I was always intrigued by that. So anyway, after a few years of moving back and forth and being homesick enough, even though I loved America as well, I decided that at that crossroads, it was time for me to move home. And I spent a couple of years working with Jacob's Biscuits, which was an absolutely fantastic experience. They had just been bought over by Fruitfield Foods, and Michael Carey owned Fruitfield Foods at the time. And it was just an incredible collaboration of two amazing brands. And within that, the whole chef brand and Boland's Biscuits. And I was their export manager for 2.5 years and got to travel and just had such a wealth of experience there. But I suppose there was always something in me that I wanted to open up my own business and I wanted to try something in food. And I had taken so many different ideas from when I was in America and obviously been back home and traveling as well. And that's where the whole concept of Gourmet Food Parlour came about.
Absolutely amazing. My God, you've been around the world.
Almost, but not quite, but almost.
And I knew that lovely accent. Although I love the Dublin accent, I knew it wasn't from Dublin. So you're a Galway native. I love Galway. It's one of my favourite counties in Ireland.
I know, I love it too. And I love to be able to get home as much as I can. And opening a restaurant in Salthill, which is beside where I'm from originally in Barna, was probably one of the proudest moments I've ever had. So it's fantastic that, you know, I can get to go to Galway, and then there's a Gourmet Food Parlour there as well, which is an extra bonus.
Even better. And so tell us on that then, tell us all about the Gourmet Food Parlour. I know you've got restaurants and catering and events. Tell us all about it and how and when it started and where was your first restaurant?
So that's and I love talking about this because I'm so proud of the brand and so proud of the business that it's become. So back in 2006, when the Celtic Tiger was in Ireland and everybody was doing very well for themselves, I decided to open up Gourmet Food Parlour. And because the country was so affluent and doing and you know, experiencing a really good economy at the time, it was very difficult for a very young lassie to rent a premises. And I mean, the concept was there. I knew what I wanted to do, but the difficulty for me was trying to find a landlord who would actually give me a chance. But anyway, I found a man called Bob Reid, and I'll never ever forget him. And I found a tiny premises on a side street, off a side street in Dun Laoghaire, County Dublin, and he decided to give me a chance. And really that was where the whole concept of Gourmet Food Parlour came from. And it took a while to get it up to scratch and open up, but on the 28th of July 2006 we opened at 1 p.m. And we opened as like it was a 25-seater cafe. I imported foods in from America with brands that I had worked with before in the hope that I would sell those and make a go of that. And it was funny, one of the customers said to me, he said, those shelves will be gone and you'll have tables and chairs there in about 6 months. And he was right. So kind of started off very simple, Colm, really, you know, gourmet sandwiches and salads and really good artisan coffee and hand selected wines and desserts, anti-pasty boards, you know, stuff like that. But then, you know, I suppose after about 6 months, I could see there was a really, really strong demand for the brand. So what we were doing was very unique in its own right, but customers, you know, really reacted very well to it. And I could see quite quickly, you know, that there was more of a scope, and there was definitely a massive potential. So I think after about a year or a year and a half, I decided to look for another location to see if I could get, you know, see if we could expand it, and would it be as welcoming the second time round. So I went over to the north side. I kept one on the south side, went over to the north side. I just went to Swords, just from literally like just researching different towns around Dublin, you know. And over I went to Swords, and into the estate agent as naive as hell, and knocked at the door and found and again it was very busy. It was 2007 then. That was before the, you know, the first recession, after the Celtic Tiger. And yeah, I found a unit again off a side street. So I always say that we've grown the business hashtag not on the high street, because we're not on any main streets anywhere. But yeah, so found a unit in Swords and opened up a second Gourmet Food Parlour. And it was a slow burner to start. You know, it's like, let's not take no for an answer, and let's keep fighting and pushing it. And we did, you know, and it got there eventually. And it just kind of started to grow from there.
Absolutely brilliant. And then from there, did you open more restaurants before you had gone into the catering and events, or how did that evolve?
Yeah, the catering and events kind of coincided with opening another kind of restaurant. And I've opened restaurants and cafes and closed them and sold them on because it just didn't work out. You know, some work out, some don't. And it's all about taking a risk and believing in yourself. And if it doesn't work out, then you have to pick yourself up and, you know, and just learn from the reasons why it didn't work out, and be grateful that you still have your business and keep going, you know, because I think you learn more about making mistakes than you do about doing things right all the time, you know. But yeah, so with the catering and event side of the business, we very much like just kind of came like out of nowhere. So we were asked, I think, to make some sports packs for a couple of some teams development squads. And then eventually we started doing, you know, when we opened first, we started doing like little bits of office catering and a few platters here and there. And then eventually kind of, you know, the quality, I suppose, of what we were doing got out there. And I love working with local producers and Irish suppliers, and that's very, very important to me. And that whole philosophy is within the whole restaurant style of what we serve. But I mean, the business evolved so much over the years. Like, it went from being a cafe just serving food during the day to now, you know, 14 years later, we're open for breakfast, brunch, lunch and dinner, and we serve wines and cocktails and beers, and you can get takeaway and you can buy online. So there's a huge change in the business since we opened to now. And that's like, for any business owner, you have to evolve and you have to be 10 steps ahead of yourself nearly, you know, when you have your own business. But the whole catering side then started off small, and then we were asked to tender for a sports contract, which we got. And that was about that was about 9 or 10 years ago. And that was with Dublin GAA. And we've been the official food partners of the Dublin team since then. So we provide the refuel for them post training, and that's been an incredible contract for us to get. And we also, on the back of that, we work with the IRFU, and we work with Leinster Rugby, and we work with a lot of the great elite sports teams, which is a great honour for us as well. But in saying that, you know, again, that didn't happen overnight, and there was a lot of hard work and a lot of learning and a lot of learning about how to be brilliant at what you do and be the best at what you do without overcomplicating it was a huge part of the lessons that we learned over the years, you know.
That's absolutely phenomenal. So you're with Dublin GA, which I'm sure is a massive contract, and with the RF, or the Rugby Football Union. What about the FAI? Nothing there yet?
Yeah, we're with them too. Yeah,
absolutely superb.
Yeah, I know, it's great.
I didn't realize that. That's amazing.
I know there's a lot of strings to our bow, you know, and sometimes it's difficult to communicate them all. But you know, that's our marketing challenge on a regular basis, is trying to get all the messages across of what Gourmet Food Parlour actually entails, and getting that across to the consumer, to the right consumers at the right time. So that's always a challenge. But it's so wonderful to be able to shout about so many things, and we're very proud of everything that we do. So we take a lot of pride in all the different departments within the business.
Well, it's absolutely amazing, and it's a brilliant endorsement of how well you've done that. All these large sporting organisations are actually going with you and staying with you. Amazing,
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you. Thanks very much.
God, that's honestly superb. So tell me now, you've spoken a wee bit about some of the challenges. What are the main challenges you faced, especially at the outset, Lorraine?
Oh, at the outset, back in 2006, there was so many challenges. And I think, you know, when you have a dream, your dream, nothing's going to stand in your way if you really want to fulfill that dream. However, life gets in the way, and there's so many barriers, particularly when you open your own business, and all for the right reasons. So first of all was trying to find a premises to start the dream. Second of all, was just trying to get finance. I mean, you know, I prepared all the figures and everything, and there was a business plan with all within an inch of its life, and going into the banks, and they were just literally going, no, thanks, no. And you know what? And they were right in a way, because I mean, I was innocent and I didn't have any experience of running my own business. So from that perspective, it was very, very challenging. And look, eventually I don't take no for an answer. So eventually I got my own way, but I mean, it takes perseverance, you know, and sometimes if you get a couple of knocks before you even open your business, it can be difficult to get the confidence or the wherewithal to go through. But I think youth was definitely on my side at the time. So I wasn't taking no for an answer. And I really wanted and believed in this dream so much, you know, and then I think as well, when you open your business first, it's very overwhelming, because, you know, you could have brought lots of strengths into that business. However, you're required, say I could have brought 2 strengths, but you're required to have about 10. So the 8 weaknesses that I had, you have to kind of adapt, and you have to learn them fairly quickly. So it's a roller coaster, and you have to juggle a lot of hats, and you have to be a psychologist and a psychiatrist and a business owner and a chef and a customer service representative, and you have to be the marketing person. So there's so many things that you have to do. But look, if you really believe in what you're doing and you want it so badly, it's not a challenge. It's more, this is exciting, and I want to get over this, and I want to work through this, and I want to make this all happen. So, but there were certainly a lot of challenges at the beginning, a lot of them.
I must say, your personality is infectious. I have no doubt that follows you through your business as well. And just, you said a couple of things there. One of the questions I was going to ask you was, did you get any financial help or even some mentoring from any agencies, government agencies, or anyone at all when you were starting?
No, at the time, no, Colm. Like, it's amazing what's available now versus what was available back in 2006, because it's like polar opposites, worlds apart. Like, now there's so much available, and there's like, even from a training perspective, which is so important for staff. Back then there was nothing, though. No, we applied for grants, like I applied for various different things, but there was nothing there at the time. So really, in a way, I look at that as a positive now, because by God, did it harden me up, you know what I mean? You have a tough skin, you know. You had to make it work yourself. There was nobody there saying, well, here's a free, if this doesn't go well for you, here's a free pass on to the next level. There wasn't. So failure wasn't an option, even though I can tell you, as a youthful business, that it came fairly close to it. I can tell you a few times, but look, got through it, and still standing to tell the tale.
Thank God, because I'll tell you, honestly, I can't believe how well you've done, considering, you know, you come back fairly green about the gills, if you don't mind me saying, from America, and get into like corporate world, and then going out on your own. It's all credit to you. Honestly, it's amazing. So tell me, in terms of the expansion of the business, did you franchise, or have you thought about franchising, or are they all yours?
No, they're all mine. They're all under the Gourmet Food Parlour umbrella. And yes, I have thought of franchising, but I'll tell you, I've said no to it so many times for so many different reasons. And just because I feel like the biggest thing that a customer will say when they stand outside a Gourmet Food Parlour, or they see the brand outside outside a restaurant, or they see a van driving by, is I know that the quality or the pride that I take in that is I have control over it. And I know that the team that are working in Gourmet Food Parlour now have the passion and the love and the interest to make it an amazing brand. I don't ever want that diluted. And I not to say that franchisees wouldn't put the same passion into it, but I don't know, I might get that sense in time, but at the moment I just don't have that sense. I'm so proud to build it myself, and it's an Irish company that's just grown its own legs over the last 14 years, and it's a business that kind of like has evolved itself nearly, and I want to see where that takes it. I don't want anything else to get in the way of it, and I'm so proud of it. I want to keep going myself and see what we can do.
Absolutely. It's a bit cliche, but it's like your baby and you don't want to let go of it, do you?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Fair play. So in terms of the catering, you sort of said that it maybe arrived on your door more by accident and design. I take it now that that's completely sprouted legs of its own, and you're actively following that route.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about catering and events, because catering and events is quite a small phrase for what can be a huge business. And when I opened first, I remember designing catering brochures like within a couple of weeks for takeaway and for catering to offices and stuff. So we were doing that from the get-go, but it was more the different types of catering that kind of landed on our laps then after that. And it was more like, so say for example, we would specialize in sports catering, as discussed, and then we have a lot of contracts with corporate catering as well. So that could be from just coming in to feed employees on a weekly basis, or it could be just feeding in the staff canteen or something like that, or else we're doing high-end events where you've got canopies and it's all, it's black tie, and and we can do a sit-down meal. And then we also do weddings as well. So we're fairly broad when it comes to catering and events. And we also have a really cool food truck that we send around to different events around the country, and we can rock up at weddings, and you can get fish and chips, or you can get nice Thai red curries, or you can get ice cream, or you can get whatever you want out of it. And so it's one of those versatile units, but it's mobile on the road, and that's really cool as well. So there's a lot going on in that department, and it has really, again, it's like a business in its own right. It has sprouted a lot over the years. And in 2018, I opened up a 5,000 square foot facility in Santry, which was bespokely built for catering. Unfortunately, it's been closed since March, but I'm fingers crossed that we get to reopen it as soon as possible. I'm just working our catering business out of a smaller unit now, just for economies of scale. But yeah, I mean, it's there's a huge market there for catering and events, and it's a very competitive market and very well carried out in Ireland as well. But I love it. I love that side of things as well. I love having the restaurants, and I love people coming in and dining and putting their photographs up on Instagram. But equally, I love as well, getting out in a different realm and serving really good food. And the biggest thing for me is customer service, and having a team that love what they do, and that's reflected to the customer and reflected at a wedding or serving a sports team, or it's been greeted at the door of a restaurant that people see, oh my God, I see that passion in the team, and a customer can really enjoy the experience an awful lot more when they've enjoyed themselves, for their welcomes as much as
if you have anything to do with it, I am sure that your team are sparkling.
Oh, they're great. I have to say, I'm very lucky. I've got a very, very magical team.
Brilliant. Well, I'm actually salivating here. Any plans of coming north at all?
Well, you never know.
Here in Belfast.
You never know. And I love Belfast. My goodness, you never know. Maybe someday.
Please God. So, is there a project management element to your catering business, or how does it work in essence? If I wanted my business to bring your company in to supply our catering, how does it work?
Yeah, so well, basically, I've set up the business in such a way that there's an organizational structure there to be able to deal with inquiries, no matter what they are. So that comes from anything from a customer looking to reserve a table. I've got two options for them. They can ring and talk to our receptionist 7 days a week, or you can go online and you can book your table whenever you want. So that's readily available for those who like to make the phone call and have the personal touch, or for those millennials who prefer to just go online and not talk to anyone. So that's totally fine as well.
I'm definitely the former.
Yeah, I know, me too. Me too. But equally as well, so when we were expanding, like over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, quite heavily, I wanted to have a structure in place that was going to be able to work with the business. So I have an operations team who manage the day-to-day running of the units, the managers and the head chefs. I have a finance team who looks after everything from the wages to the processing of all the financial information. I have a marketing team with a full-time graphic designer and digital and social media manager. I also have a new business development team. Then we have HR and we have a catering and event team as well. So there's a manager there, and then there's a manager of the drivers and the organization of the servers and all the operational background of that. So any inquiries that come in through the head of the catering team, and then each inquiry will be dealt with individually, and sometimes the inquiry could come in through LinkedIn, it could come in through Facebook, it could come in through email, it could be a referral, it could be a phone call, a text, whatever. We follow up on everything, and everybody is dealt with individually. So if you're somebody, to answer your question, Colin, talking to me about, I'm looking for you to come in and feed the team, well, then we go and we meet you, or we have a chat with you, and then we assess what your requirements are, and then we would prepare a proposal for you based on that, and then we work together to see how it would work. So we take it very seriously, and it's all dealt with in a very strategic and procedural way.
Brilliant. And do you have outbound marketing as well, where you're trying to attract that type of business?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think digital social media is where it's at. And I mean, it's an incredible platform for promoting your business. So we would manage everything within an inch of its life in terms of social media plans, from stories on Instagram and Facebook to posts from LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And we're very, very, very detailed in that. So then we also work on different ads throughout all the platforms and advertising. So we're constantly, the wheels are constantly moving on how we can promote ourselves. And then we also engage with influencers. Up to pre-COVID, we have specific ambassadors working on behalf of the company as well. So we would engage with them, and then they would engage with their contacts. Networking is huge, being involved with all the chambers and the areas where our restaurants are. I mean, you name it, we do it all.
And I hope very much this online food drink summit will add to that in terms of the amount of people.
So yeah, that would be great. That would be wonderful. It's always great to meet new people, and it's always great to have new contacts.
Superb. So look, we had spoken earlier about COVID and basically how you've dealt with the pandemic. So tell us a wee bit about that and how much it's impacted upon you in the business.
Yeah, well, I just, I think pre-COVID was a very different world. And I said to you earlier on, I don't think our world will ever be the same again. It's definitely changed for good. And I think there's lots of positives to take from COVID, lots of really strong learnings. And I suppose realizing how adaptable we are as people, not let alone as business owners, but as people, because everybody's lives have completely changed, and I'll never forget March the 15th as long as I live, and closing down the business is one of the hardest decisions that I've ever had to make. But I closed down pretty early, Colin, because I had this feeling, I had two feelings of sensing that customers were very, very nervous, staff were nervous. We didn't know what this virus was about. We didn't know how dangerous it was, and ultimately we all had a responsibility to make that decision. And that decision was made without knowing or ever thinking that was going to be any support for the business, support for jobs. And it was a worrying time, because there's a lot of people who work for me with families and mortgages and responsibilities. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I am a business owner, but I'm a protector of the people who work for me, and as long as anyone works for me, I will mind them. But it was taken out of my hands, you know, and that's a difficult thing to have to face when you're a business owner. So that was one aspect of it. Number two, you know, dealing with the fact that you couldn't pay rent and you have no income coming in. You didn't know, like I closed down completely and I didn't open for takeaway for a few weeks because, do you know what, I just didn't know if it was the right thing to do. But then when Leo Varadkar kept saying takeaways can open, you can do takeaways and deliveries. I mean, I had 12 vans sitting in my catering and event business that were absolutely gathering dust. You know, I had customers contacting us saying, how can I get my quesadillas and how can I get my wings and how can I get my salad? And so we were going, okay, well, this is a pretty much of a no-brainer. So I kind of just set up a drive-through in my Santry restaurant, which is a kind of easily accessible and has a huge car park just dedicated to the restaurant alone. So we were able to do that very safely. And while I was doing all of that, I started to train all my staff on new health procedures and dealing with COVID and working in a COVID environment and, you know, respecting your colleagues and respecting the customer and protecting yourselves. So we did all that, and then we kind of opened one unit and that kind of did well. And it was like starting the business all over again, to be honest with you. So we started from scratch and started to rebuild. And, you know, and then we opened up a second one, and then we decided to work with a business that would allow us to our customers to go onto our website and order all the food, because what we were doing is we were getting customers to ring in and say, can I order this, can I order that? And sure, gee, Max, we were up to high dough with all of that. So we said, hold on a minute now, this is 2020, not 1920. So we got all the online ordering on our website, which is an absolutely fundamental key change for the business, because things changed dramatically overnight, and it allowed us to open our units slowly but surely, start advertising the business in a very different way, and get some vans on the road, get some people back to work. And it was pretty exciting, you know, it was sensational to be able to do that. And we were able to survive through it. And then we worked very hard on preparing the restaurants again to reopen on the 29th of June, which we did. And unfortunately, then again in September, we were hit again. So it's very hard. It's very hard to deal with it a second time round, and revenue is dramatically decreased. And you know, I need to keep my key people around me, because Colm, when I reopen, I want the business to work hard to get back to a normal sense of revenue and turnover and you know, just that spark of the brand again. And I need to keep the people around me. So there's massive pressure on businesses, and particularly in the hospitality industry right now, it's very, very difficult. And I feel for everyone who is struggling, because it is a worrying time and it's a very stressful time. And I suppose what I would say to anybody who is going through a tough time is, you know, speak to people who know what you're going through, and talk to people, talk to support networks around you. And even if it's me, if someone wants to message me and say, God, Lorraine, how did you go through that? And hopefully I might be able to help them, because it's very difficult. It is very difficult, and it's a massive fingers crossed that we can get over the other side and reopen our doors again. I miss the buzz of the restaurants, you know, I miss the, hi, how are you? And how's everything for you? And, you know, the bell on the pass and all those little things that you take for granted, you miss them, you know.
There's no doubt. Well, there's so many things we've taken for granted now. You think, oh, like even just walking to the shop at one stage, you couldn't, you know, that was a big thing. Oh, you get to go to the shop. It's unbelievable.
I was putting on my makeup going to Super Value because that was my night out. You know, like seriously.
It's my night out.
Yeah.
So look, you've actually just led me nicely in that you said if someone wants to message you, how can we get in touch with you? Anyone who wants to make contact with you, Lorraine?
Oh, you can get in touch with me through LinkedIn. Is probably the best way. I check LinkedIn several times a day, so I'm always there. And my email is a bit of a tongue twister, but it's lheskin@gourmetfoodparlour.com. So you're more than welcome to email me or get in touch through LinkedIn, and I'd be delighted to hear from anybody.
And we'll put those links on this as well. And just could you give our viewers a piece of advice just for starting a business? Forget about COVID, just starting a business. What are your key takeaways? Pardon that pun, if you will. That might help someone, because I reckon you've been fairly inspirational here to someone who wants to start a business. You had a dream and you've actually followed through and have done exceedingly well. Tell us what you're doing.
Thanks, Colm. Well, you know, I'm a very grounded person. I don't get carried away with myself at all. And I think if I could say that to anybody, that would be one of the things. You know, I was actually on a webinar yesterday And a gentleman from the military service was giving a talk, and he was talking about how he approaches his team. And, you know, he was saying that there's no room for egos when you're in a business, and no room for egos when you're on a team. And I love that whole concept of just being very, very grounded and very grateful for the opportunities that you're given every day. But if you're starting a new business, I suppose one of the things I always say to everybody, I'm like a robot, is to walk in the shoes of the person that you aspire to be. So if you want to own your own restaurant, or you want to own your own cafe, I've had several people come to me and say, I've mentored people who want to do it, and I've also given people the opportunity to come and work in my restaurants to see what it actually entails. Because sometimes, you know, when you have a dream and you know, and you're determined and you believe in that dream, that's a fundamental given. I mean, that is something that you need to have. But there's a lot of realities to it that before you start is great to find out, because if you find out those realities, and also, I suppose I always say to somebody, if they want to come in and have a chat with me or talk to me or be in the restaurants, if I could have somebody not make the initial mistakes that I made, I'd be a very happy gal, because I made so many small mistakes and so many big mistakes as well. Now, granted, I learned from them, and that was a very, very good thing. But in a way, if I could prevent someone from doing that, it would be great, because I think they'll go and make their own mistakes in other areas as well. So it's just trying to help people. But I think the walk in the shoes of the person that you aspire to be is a big one, and getting that experience, as much mentoring, as much advice, as much research as you possibly can, is essential. It's really essential. And always believe in yourself. And even on the days that you feel, oh my, why did I do this now? What? It's wrong with me. Just, you know, go for a walk, go for a run, go to the cinema, surround yourself with good people. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, because the next day it'll be you'll feel fine again. You'll get through it, and there will be tough days. There's always tough days, no matter what you're doing. But you'll always get through it. And that belief in yourself, I always think that belief in what you're doing, if you're a genuine and a good person, that will always see you through.
Brilliant. I have to say, having made millions of mistakes myself, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The thing is that you have to learn from them. That's the important thing. Don't do it again. You know, you make a mistake once, you don't make it the second time. Brilliant, Lorraine, absolutely brilliant. So finally, before we finish, tell me, what is the future for the Gourmet Food Parlour and Lorraine Heskin? Tell me all.
I'm just going to get my crystal ball there now.
I think this was easier prior to this pandemic, I'll tell you that for nothing.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure. You know, my goal at the moment, if you'd asked me this in January, I'd have given you a totally different answer. But another thing that I worked on throughout the pandemic was I created a sub-brand within my brand of a gifting website. So it's called gourmetgifts.ie, just to give a little plug there. And I'm really proud of it. So it's kind of like a bring gourmet home, and we're working with lots of amazing Irish producers, and from small to medium size, larger businesses, whatever it is, all Irish products apart from the wines. And we're going to develop
we
that.
haven't got the climate.
I haven't got the climate. I know, if we did, I'd be buying it, don't worry. But yeah, so we're going to expand on that, and we're very excited about the reactions to that since we launched it. So we've kind of merged into another area, which is like a food gifting area, which is really, really exciting, and we have some homewares as well. So that's another area that I want to work on. And look, with regard to the brand Gourmet Food Parlour, I've spoken about how proud I am of it, and I'm proud of it because of all the people who's worked for it during the last 14 years, people who've come and gone, and people who've put their heart and soul into it, and people who are still with me 14 years later, and people who are on the team. It's a brand that's about the people. It's not about me, it's about the team. And I'm very excited to see where that takes us next year. And certainly it might be new restaurants, or it might not be, or it could be a focus on a totally different area within the food. But we're always working on something. We're always working on something exciting. And that's what makes us such a great team, is that there's no resting on laurels in Gourmet Food Parlour, and everybody is excited to keep going to the next project. So I'm excited to see where 2021 can take us and beyond.
Absolutely brilliant. And I'd just like to say to you that I love the fact that you buy Irish and you buy local, and provenance is important. I think that's really important for any business in Ireland that we look after ourselves and buy from local suppliers. Fair play.
Yeah,
I really,
very important.
yeah,
And
I really
especially now,
like that.
especially now, it's very important.
Superb. Well, that was absolutely fascinating, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I really wish you all the best.
Thanks very much.
And we'll definitely keep in touch, Lorraine. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Not at all. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. See you soon.